Hello, welcome back. Here's a closer look at one of our magless Sierra RS500s. So it's obviously RS500 from Scalextric, and we have modified it slightly so we race against each other. It's not in a series, it's all just for fun. I'll just give you a rundown of what we did. This car is, I don't know, I think they came out and then 6 months later I had it. Not too long later, the next Christmas, I got that for Christmas. So this is the oldest Sierra we have in the fleet. So to start off, we come with 3 screws. Just want to nip them off. As I say, these are the modifications we do to run magless, because we find that when you don't have a magnet, the car floats around a lot more, you get a lot more feeling. Now, this car has had some extra work done to it. I've had cables snap and break off it over the years. As I say, we used to run, I don't know, good 1,000 lap races an evening back in the day. And this car would easily do 1 kilometre a night, quite easily. I think there was times it was doing like 3 kilometres a night. So, quick rundown. Obviously, magnet removed straight away. This one doesn't appear to have the motor glued down. Believe it or not, I can't believe that. Or it is glued down. No, it is. It has been glued down, and it was in the early days when I was gluing it with like an impact glue. You can just about see that on there. But what I do now, I'll get a cotton bud with some contact cleaner on it, or brake cleaner, and I'll run a bead of hot glue in there. So what I'll do to start with, I'll clean this area of any grease, side of the motor, the bottom of the chassis, with a cotton bud with brake cleaner or contact cleaner. Same there, right in the gap. Then what I'll do is get the hot glue gun, make sure it's really warm, and run a small bead. I like to run it as close to the front of the car as possible. So I'll probably go from the front of the car to 3/4 away on a newer car that I do today. I've seen it and I've done it myself. I used to apply weight to this magnet slot. Now, when you do that, on a car like the Sierra, they're quite narrow and they're fairly top heavy. To be fair, we love these cars. They perform really well for what they are, what they look like, the size of them. It's, yeah, I think there isn't a better scalextric car out there to be racing, to be honest. Because especially on a scalextric track, because you've got the narrowness of the car, so you've got a bit of movement in the lane. They're fairly stable when you do the mods. Obviously they're cheap, and I've had it where the wheels come they're pretty square out the box, like pretty good square out the box, unlike some of the stuff I've had of late. So obviously you can see we've got a load of tack in there. Now I'll show you now. The weight of that is 79 grams, 89 or something it says there. So what you could do is you can get your body, your chassis, your screws all together, remove your magnet, excuse me, remove your magnet, load up, you could just get yourself your lump of tack to the desired weight that gets you anywhere from 75 to about 80 grams, I find is good. Then you want to load that as flatly as possible, or any high spots as close to the middle of the chassis as possible. It seems to have quite a lot of tack in there. The reason I use tack is because it just stays there. It's not the heaviest, and it does give a higher centre of gravity. If you can obviously see that there, that they're sticking up quite a way. But as I say, it's cheap. At the time you was getting it for £1 a packet. It's £1.50 now, I believe. And it just works. And I can take it out and I can reuse it, or I can just throw it away and I'm not too bothered. I have gone down the lead route in the past. The problem with me is I'm always tinkering. And once you start cutting up bits of lead to fit the right part, and then you start moving it and cutting it again, the lead disappears, it gets smaller and smaller, and it's not cheap to keep paying for. So anyway, so that's basically where you're at with next to nothing modifications. Obviously it's had a early, that's I think, I don't know what rev they are. Is it a Rev G? Yeah, early Rev G chip on there. So next up is the thing that brings what I put on all my scalextric cars on. As far as this tyre fits, it's just a lovely, what we call our control tyre. I use that P6 compound. Camera is not playing ball today. P6 compound, 19 by 10 mil, and it's PT24. They are slotted tyres. Yeah, camera's not playing ball today that well. So they slot straight over. I've not glued them, they're not glued or anything. So they slot straight over, standard wheel. And I tend to put, if you get them, I tend to put the writing on the inside, or if you might find that there's like a moulding or a casting strip, and I'll put that on the inside of the tyre and not on the outside. This one's now worn away because, as I say, this is an old car. Another thing you can do, I've done some of my cars, I was having to think about it, I'm not sure if it does or doesn't work. That's raised, or it's lower when you go round. Now, as you know, scalextric curb is raised. There's two faults on this one. Either that, the car starts to slide, and that grabs onto the raised curb, which stops you sliding anymore. I think that works if the back end is very light, just like this one. If you cut that away and smoothen that off, yeah, this will not hit the curb, so it won't raise the rear wheels as much. I'm not sure if once it gets over a certain point, it then snatches out too far. So a bit more experimenting I need to do on that one. I think it depends how you drive the car and how the weight's set up. But that does catch the curbs. And with a car that's heavy on the rear, once it hits that curb, likely it is, it's going to just loop round on you. Very basically, that's how I've done the braids on this particular car. This car, or these braids, I can't seem to find that anymore. It's JP slot braid. I was getting it from eBay. Brilliant stuff, but I haven't seen that for a while. So yeah, basically that's what you're looking at with a very, very lightly modified Sierra RS500 digital car, ready to go racing with your mates. Now this is the car that we'll all use everything else when they're all playing up. So we just get the cozzies out. So that's what we do. Finally, so sometimes the lights will pop off and out. You may have a car where the light bulbs pop in and out. You can stick a little bit of blue tack or whatever you want to call it in there, just to hold it in when you're trying to get the body on and off, and hopefully it will take some hits. Now everyone uses all different kinds of oil. I've started using 1050. It's fully synthetic. It's just some motor oil I've had for my car. I'll chuck that inside that bush there, inside the front axle holder and the front axle holder there. Before you do that, just wipe it with a cotton bud, clean it, apply some new oil, and then clean it again. You can dab some oil onto your motor shaft as it comes out of the motor itself and on the front. When you do the motor, you only want a little bit, don't drown it. A little bit goes a long way. Again, probably want either a PTFE grease on there or some sort of silicone grease. The thicker the grease, the slower the car will go. It will sound quiet, but it might take a little bit of time to warm up before the car starts motoring again. So things just to think about. Now obviously that's where I recommend putting the weight in this car, because when you have weight at the back, you go around the corner, the car just does that and it takes a long time to catch up with itself. The closer the weight is to the front, because what you're doing is you're making now the weight across the centre of the chassis, even though the pivot point is here, it still helps. The car, when it comes out, it will snatch back quicker. It won't go out and do a big slide and back. It will come back and bring the slide in a lot quicker, and it'll end the slide quicker. That's just the way I find it. Obviously, the higher you go with this weight, you're going to start tipping. But I also found if you load up the rear of the car with weight, these tyres will dig in on the sides and they'll tip. Right, finally, in case you're getting bored, 3 screws. Now, I find on 90% of my touring cars, see that, so also before firing the screw in, I'm going backwards. Hear that click? That's where it's found the thread, and now I can just gently screw in, and I know I'm not cutting a new thread every time. Same again on the front, little click. Now I'm going down. I'm not cutting a new thread every time with these self-tapping screws. So what I like to do with these touring cars is there's a little bit of movement on the front, but that could be too much. Excuse the camera, I'm really sorry about that. So I've ever so slight movement on the chassis on the front, almost tight at the front, but the rear stays. Oh, actually, it's gone a bit tight, but the rear, it's not even enough for the chassis to make a gap along here. It's just a bit of movement. And as I say, I usually keep the front screws tighter, the rear one ever so slightly loose. Beware when you're on digital, because screws falling out, falling in the rail, you get a lovely short circuit. So again, you can put a little tiniest bit of tack in the hole just to keep the screw firm in the hole. But that's what we got. That's where we're at. That's my RS500. The cheat car, everyone calls it, because it handles so well. But yeah, love it. Thank you.